Welcome and good evening and whatever. Well, is it evening or night? I don't know. We're not going to say good night because that sounds we're going to go to bed. We're going to talk Rangers this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about what John Gilligan has been saying. I want to get your points of view on what the interim chairman has been stating. You know what? It goes from the sublime to the ridiculous, doesn't it? Like I said on the video that I released earlier, we've got chairmen who seem to be allergic to speaking to the media, and then we get a chairman who seems to love speaking to the media. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Abdallah Sima as well. We had some more news on him as regards, obviously, how many Rangers did not give up on signing Abdallah this evening. You know, so there we go. John, she is, mate, but she has a very hectic work schedule at the moment. And also she's having a few family things that she needs to sort out, which I don't really want to discuss on the channel. So, yes, she is still part of the channel. She will be back at some point. John, don't worry. We will be having Laura back. Like I said, she's got a very hectic work schedule. She does work for the NHS, but she's having a few family things that she needs to sort out at the moment. So we'll give her a bit of a break, a bit of a sabbatical, if you want, mate. That's what's happening. Hello to Proper Collector. How you doing, buddy? So we're going to talk a little bit about all those things. We're going to talk a little bit about the situation with John Gilligan and what he said. We'll talk a little bit about Abdallah Sima. We're going to talk a little bit about wages. We're going to talk a little bit about a few different things. And we will obviously get back to your comments, your views, your comments. Airwolf says, no chance Miller now. Airwolf, why is there no chance of Lennon Miller now? Let me know in your comments, your thoughts on that. And obviously, as well, we're going to talk young players as well, with Niels Coppen saying that the aim is to sign at least one Scot per season. You had some interesting comments to make on that. I want to talk a little bit about that as well. Right, let's start off by talking a little bit about John Gilligan, the Rangers chairman. Right, so John Gilligan, Rangers chairman, Rangers interim chairman, is someone who has, you know, he came into the job. Yeah, absolutely. Fee going up, and clubs who could get involved. Absolutely, mate. So yeah, there is that issue. So look, right. We'll talk this. Let me just reply to this. So 2 seconds. There we go. Right. So John Gilligan's come out today and he's talked a little bit about you know what's happening at the club, what the situation is at the club, etc., etc. I mean, like I said on the video earlier, it's gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, hasn't it? You know, John Bennett was a guy who barely ever talked to the media. We had Douglas Park, who was allergic to talking to the media. And now we suddenly have someone who seemingly can't stop talking to the media. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that he came out at the end of his first month, wanted to give an update. I mean, I think possibly the update is in the line of perhaps the slightly more positive news to deliver. You know, I think he's very aware that the PR around the club at the moment is not brilliant. You know, given the Lyon results, given the poor performances we've had recently. Yes, we've got 6 points, but the performances haven't been great. So I think it's kind of a redirection, a kind of a, you know, trying to clear things up. I think, you know, with the news as well coming out that Craig Robertson was leaving, that John Bennett's obviously stepped down, that James Bisgrove's gone, that Zeb Jacobs has gone. You know, a thing that's been levelled a lot at Rangers recently is that, you know, the club has no leadership. The club has no direction at the top. And I think, look, when you haven't got a proper chairman who's capable of making decisions, because I think, you know, no matter what John Gilligan, you know, does, I don't think John Gilligan can make any massive decisions. Yes, he can help with the recruitment of a CEO, the recruitment of a chairman. But in terms of the recruitment, I think a director of football operations and the academy director, I don't think they're decisions he can make, because they're decisions the new guys are going to have to make, the new chairman, the new CEO is going to have to make. So I don't think we're going to see any movement on Craig Robertson's replacement or Zeb Jacobs' replacement until we have a new CEO and a new chairman in place. So I genuinely feel that is the situation at the club. I don't feel that he feels that he can take that decision, because the issue could be that, you know, he makes a decision, he appoints player X or person X to be the director of football operations. He appoints person Y to be the director of the academy. The new chairman and new CEO come in and go, well, why'd you appoint those two for? That's not who I would have appointed. I could have got you this person or that person. So I do think that that's probably why they aren't moving forward for definite. Airwolf says in the live chat, he says, to be fair, Gilligan, at least he's putting himself out there. I mean, yeah, to be fair to him, I mean, I'm not saying, casting any aspersions on the job that he's doing. He's doing a caretaker job. He's doing an interim job. He's there just to look after things whilst things get sorted, if they ever do get sorted. And yeah, at least he's coming out and speaking to the fans. At least he's got that side of it right. And I think for me, you've got to give him a bit of credit, because one of the things that was always levelled at John Bennett, was levelled at Douglas Park, was levelled at Rangers board in general, was that the club kind of was keeping the fans in the dark. The club left the fans thinking, well, what's going on? What's happening with this? What's happening with this? Why aren't we being told? And, John Gilligan, I think, is getting it right from that aspect, that he's keeping the fans in the loop. He's letting the fans know what the situation is with the stand, with the CEO search, with the team. He's talking openly about all these things and keeping the fans in the loop. Whereas I think Bennett obviously had left it for months and months and months before we spoke about the Copeland Road issue, before we spoke about other issues at the club, the CEO search, etc., etc. He left it way too long for me. So I think, fair play to John Gilligan. I'm going to give him some credit for this. I mean, he does deserve a little bit of credit for that, I think. He's maybe not a great talker, but he's talking to the fans every couple of weeks, which is good. And that's the thing. Yeah. Look, he's not a fantastic orator. He's not someone who's going to, keep you on the edges, who's going to come and promise you the world. He's not Dave King, for example, but he is someone who is willing to keep the fans, informed of what's going on at the club. And I think, look, at the end of the day, as fans of a football club, all we want to know is what is happening to our football club, what direction is our football club going into, the vacancies that we've got, what is being done to fill them. What is the intention moving forward with the playing team? What is the intention moving forward with the board? These are the things we want to know. And I think, John Gilligan seems to understand that the biggest stakeholders in this club are the fans, not the board, not the shareholders. The actual important people to address and to keep in the loop are the fans. Yes, the shareholders invest money. Yes, the investors invest money that keeps the club running. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't have a club without the fans. And the fans spend hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds on merchandise, on ticket sales, on match day, food and drink and things like that. And, at the end of the day, without the fans, they'd be nobody. They wouldn't have any money. They wouldn't be getting a return on their investment. So, John Gilligan's going about this in the right way. John, that's a brilliant question from John. He says, is this recruitment agency taking the club for a ride? Now, I don't know a fantastic amount about how recruitment agencies work, but they must charge by the hour, or they must charge by the day, or they must charge by a certain period, or they must have to put a fee in place for the club to pay if they're working on behalf of the club. Now, the CEO search still, for me, is a bit of a farce. It really genuinely is. I mean, the closest we allegedly came to having a CEO was when, was it Jim Gillespie, who was the assistant chairman at St Mirren, was allegedly linked with the role. That was very quickly denied by Gillespie, and I think to some degree by the club as well. And it's still ongoing. I think one of the biggest weaknesses at Rangers at this moment in time is there is nobody at the top of the business. Now, John Gilligan can come out and say that the club doesn't lack leadership because it's got him and John and Brian Leatham, I think the guy's name is, that are running things. But with the best will in the world, I think it was actually, the agency only started after Gilligan came in. So it was working for Bennett as well, RFC 72. So it was actually working for Bennett as well. So, because John Bennett talked about it as well in his interview. If you go back and watch John Bennett's interview, he does mention recruitment agencies. I mean, the question is, obviously, we've got this shortlist now. Who is on this shortlist? How soon can this person be appointed? That's the big question for me, because we realistically do need to get someone in place ASAP. If we're going to move the business forward, if we're going to move the club forward, we need someone in place now, basically, who can make decisions as regards, the director of football operations, the director of the academy. We're going into January as well. And for me, I think one of the big weaknesses of this summer transfer window was not having a CEO overseeing the whole business of the transfer window, keeping things online, keeping things moving forward with that, looking at bringing in revenue streams. I'm good, Acoustic. How you doing, buddy? So I do genuinely feel that there is a concern there. Until we get this CEO in, and I think it's absolutely imperative this CEO is in sooner rather than later. It's obviously the right man for the job. And, for me, one of the most important things with this CEO, whoever it may be at the end of the day, is they're not a stooge for the board, that they're not a yes man for the board, that they're not just someone that's John Gilligan's mate, or that's Douglas Park's mate, or that's Graham Park's mate. Although Graham Park's best mate's probably McDonald's by the looks of it. There we go. RT70 says Bennett had his mate from St Mirren. Once he patched it because Bennett was stepping down, we then started the agency. Fair enough. I could have sworn he mentioned an agency in his interview. So I do believe that this CEO is vital to be in place before the January transfer window, because we do need someone, I think, to oversee this business. We also need someone to appoint a director of football operations as well before the January transfer window. We need to be going in there with our A team, with our team, to really get things right off and on the field. And January is going to be really important for the club. I think there's, as Niels Koppen said, there'll be players going out, players coming in. We've clearly identified, the positions that we need to strengthen. He said that he sat down with the manager, he sat down with the coaching staff, he sat down with all the members of the football board, and they talked about where the weak areas were, the areas where we perhaps weren't good enough, the areas where we didn't have enough players where the areas we didn't have any players. And we've identified apparently the areas to be strengthened. Now they're not going to come out and say, oh, we need to strengthen area 1, area 2, area 3, area 4, because the moment they do that, then clubs will look at that and say, well, Rangers are desperate for a striker, they're desperate for a right back, they're desperate for a centre back, they're desperate for a 6. So let's put the money up on those players because we want to fleece as much money out of Rangers as possible. So that's not going to happen. But it's good that there's been that identification process. And I'm going to talk about Koppen in a minute, but I just want to mention a little bit about what he's been saying about the pyro situation. He's talked about how we've lost, I think, just over 30 grand in fines, and I think that's good. That it's only I mean, it seems weird to say that's only 30 grand, because that's obviously more than I get paid in a year. But it's only 30 grand. That there's no other repercussions as a result of the pyros. There's no stadium closures, there's no ticket bans, there's no away fan bans, there's no share stands being shut down. I think that's spot on. But as I said on the video, if you are someone who takes pyros to games, yes, they look lovely and all that, and looks great. And I know they happen in other leagues, but I don't care about other leagues. I don't care about AC Milan or Inter Milan or Napoli or Bayern Munich or Bayer Leverkusen or any of those clubs. I care about Rangers losing money. I care about Rangers getting their fans banned from grounds. I care about Rangers having a stand shut down for a Europa League tie. That's what's important. So, look, I'd say to those people, and if they watch this, I don't know if any Union Bears watch this or any people watch this who, take pyros, don't take them. Just don't be a moron. Don't cost the club money. Don't put the club in a situation where it's going to get in trouble with UEFA, no matter what you think of the situation, whether you think it's a stupid ban or whether you think it's a sensible ban. Just don't take them in. It's just really simple, because Rangers don't have money to just splash around. We don't have 30 grand to just waste on people's on paying fines. Now, if at the next Europa League game, which is against Steaua Bucharest FCSB on the 24th, if we have a pyro display again on that, then the repercussions are going to be more serious. The fine will be more heavy, and there's a chance that the stand where the pyros are will be shut down for the next game. Now, we can't afford that. We genuinely can't afford that, because you lose all the match day revenue for that stand. You lose those fans on the European nights. We know, what an incredible ground Ibrox is on a European night. You take out one of the stands, you're automatically, cutting back on the atmosphere. You're cutting back on that. So please, if you use pyros, if you know someone who takes pyros to the game, tell them not to do it. Tell them to stop it now, please, as John Gilligan has said. Airwolf says, by Koppen, the way he's talking, no Shankland should be looking at the next Shankland. Yeah, I don't think he's looking at experienced talent. I don't think he's looking at talent that's 29, 30 years old. I think he's looking at talent that can be developed. I mean, he talked about the fact that 80% of the transfers you bring into the club should be sellable. 80% of your transfers should be sellable. And, remarkable statistics. Apparently, we looked at over 600 players in the summer. 600. That's mad as. This is going to be a difficult season for us, and in my honest opinion, nothing gets better till we get a new system of ownership of the club. I think we do need a new system. I do think we need a complete overhaul at the top of the club, and I've been very vocal on this. And I think it's cost me some subscribers. I think it's cost me some people don't like me now because of what I've said. But the Park family need to go from this club. They are a cancer that needs to be cut out of this club. They are damaging this club. You know, it's interesting. I've heard things that people say that they won't work for the club because of the Parks. So that's interesting, isn't it? And I think other people have said, well, the Parks are only in it for themselves to get free advertising for their dodgy car companies and their buses and all this. And I've had some really sensible suggestions. You know, I can't remember who it was commented the other day that as fans we should be boycotting all of the Parks businesses. We should be refusing to buy from them and refusing to do any business with them. You know, hit them where it hurts, hit them in the pocket. I think that's a really good shout. But Douglas Park and Graham Park need to go, and they need to go now. They're an absolute disgrace, the pair of them. They really are. I'm good, Janet. How are you doing? But, you know, in terms of Niels Coppin, like I said, he said, and we've got a poll running at the moment in the live chat, guys. Please, obviously, vote in the poll. Poll says, what's the poll? Let's have a look at the poll. So the poll is first. So we've got Watson, Cameron, as in Lyle Cameron of Dundee, Lennon Miller, and then I've got other please comments. So if you've got another player that you're interested in seeing, Rangers go after and Rangers purchase, please let me know. At the moment, it's very interesting that we've got 80% saying 82%, 83% is fluctuating. Say Miller, 17% say Watson, nobody saying Lyle Cameron at this moment in time, and nobody else for others at this moment in time. Comment here as well from Airwolf says Parks aren't great. King isn't the answer either. Need someone who, we do need a kind of new broom to come in and kind of change things around a little bit. I do believe that is a really good shout. We do need a new broom. So Niels Coppin talked, didn't he, in his interview about one Scot a season. Realistically, I think he said some interesting things. I mean, the first thing obviously was the one Scot a season, which I thought was really interesting. The fact that we want to bring in one Scottish player at least per season if the deal is right for the club. That was an interesting qualifier there, if the deal is right for the club. Conor Barron was clearly a good deal for the club. You know, Conor Barron is a quality player. He really is. And I think, we've done a fantastic deal. A fantastic deal. And we need someone who isn't a fan who can absolutely. We need someone with fresh eyes. But no, back to this about Coppin. Coppin said, look, we need one Scot for deals right now. Conor Barron has been a quality buy. I mean, I really like Conor Barron. He's a lad who never stops running, he never stops trying. He's always offering for the ball. He can play a number of roles in midfield. He's a quality player. And he's been called up to the under-21s. He's been called up to the full national team. He's clearly a guy with a very, very good future, despite what Celtic fans may tell you about Conor Barron. So, look, I mean, Conor, for me, is quality. And as much as the Scottish game is derided, down south is derided all over Europe, has been a two-team league, has been a bit of a farmers league, etc., etc. There are some good young players coming through in Scotland. You look at Lyle Cameron, you look at David Watson, you look at Lennon Miller. There are some good young talents in this league. And for me, Rangers really do need to be looking at some of these young talents, trying to address, who out of these players would be good future Rangers players. Now, look, we can talk about Lewis Ferguson if you want. That was one we've missed out on. That was just ridiculous from the board, to miss out on him. On Lewis Ferguson. But look, looking at just that board there that I put up there with those names on, you've got some good players there. You've got some really good players there. Now, I think what Airwolf was saying, in terms of Lennon Miller, Lennon, I think, is moving slowly out of our hemisphere. Now, apparently we did look at Lennon Miller in the summer. Quite why we didn't go through with that. No explanation on that one. I honestly believe that if we'd wanted to sign Lennon Miller, the summer was the time to get Lennon Miller. That's what I feel. That the time to get Lennon was in the summer, because his value is just going up and up and up and skyrocketing because of the player that he is, because of who he is, and how he's actually playing this season. I mean, if you look at Lennon Miller's stats from that he will be heading down south. either in January or at the end of the season. There's apparently English Championship clubs looking at him. There's English Premiership clubs looking at him. So he's certainly got a lot of people looking at him and saying, yeah, this kid's got something. This kid's a decent player. Now, the issue you've got is the moment you start getting the price starting to skyrocket, because we all know that English clubs have an absolutely ginormous amount of money. They really do have a ginormous amount of money. They are, even the EFL clubs have got loads of money. Even, those clubs who've just signed a bumper new TV deal, they've got so much money to spend as well. So, we're definitely looking at a situation where someone like Lennon Miller is way out of our sphere at the moment. He's not someone we can look at. I mean, his numbers from this season are fantastic. I mean, Scottish Premiership, he's made 7 appearances, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 goal contributions in 7. He's contributed to nearly 50% of all of Motherwell's goals this season. Scottish League Cup, he scored 2 in 6. So his 9 goal contributions in 13 games is brilliant, and he's only an 18-year-old lad. He really is quality. Let's have a look what we've got here. We've got a comment here. What's the issue now is Italians are taking a far closer look at Scottish football. Hickey, Ferguson, Doig, yeah, they already got those guys over in Italy, so yeah, they are looking at those players. Correct, buddy. Bluebells are Blue says Watson's a great player and still realistic. Yeah, I mean, for me now, watched Lennon Miller play for Scots in the 21s. He was the one player that stood out. Janet, he's a top player, and I think we really have missed out. I think the summer was the time to get Lennon. If we were going to get Lennon, then the time to get him was the summer. Maybe because the Conor Barron deal went through, we didn't then move for Lennon Miller. And obviously the Conor Barron deal would have been a whole lot more attractive because of the fact that obviously he was free. Well, he wasn't free, I suppose. There was that compensation fee to pay, but he cost a lot less than Lennon Miller would have cost. So yeah, look, that's where we're up to with that one. But I mean, Lennon, I think now is out of our financial power now. And, you've only got to listen to what Coppin was saying about Sima to know that we haven't got the financial power we used to have. We haven't got the ability to go and splash mega money on players. We haven't got the ability to splash mega wages on players. And Lennon Miller's going to get a bigger transfer fee. He's going to get bigger wages going down south because English clubs can pay more money for players. That's just a fact. Whereas Rangers may be able to stretch to say 3-4 million for Miller, you can probably get 6-7 million out of an English club because they're daft and they'll pay that amount of money. So that's where we're up to with that. But as Bluebell says, David Watson, I think, is still a very realistic target. He again is a young Scottish player. He's a young, talented Scottish player. He's certainly someone who has caught the eye, on a number of occasions. And as a player, he is very, very talented. He also plays in the Scottish under-21s. How much do you reckon for Lennon Miller? I mean, well, the fee that I've heard is 5 million. That's what I've heard, Janet. I heard someone mention 5 million for him. I can't see Rangers paying 5 million for him. I genuinely can't. David Watson, you're looking at probably 2-3 max. This season, 7. So this season for him in the Scottish Premiership, 7 appearances, 2 goals. In the League Cup, 1 appearance. In the Europa League qualifying, 1 appearance, 1 goal. In the Conference League, 4 appearances. So his record this season is fairly decent. He's made appearances in Europe. He's made appearances domestically. He's a good young talent. So I think David Watson is certainly someone that Rangers should be considering and should be looking at. I do think that is a very realistic, signing. Yeah, we don't have that kind of money. You've only got to look at what we've seen with Sima, what we've seen with others, that we don't have that kind of money to splash on players. We don't have 5-6 million just to splash. And I think with young players, they won't be looking to pay 5-6 million for players. That's an established player kind of fee. I can't see Rangers splashing 5 million on one player. That's not the market we work in anymore. So look, David Watson is a realistic target. Lyle Cameron, I think, is a realistic target. There's players we should be looking at. And I think Cameron and Watson are definitely players that we should be having a long, hard look at. And the other interesting thing that Coppin said during his comments was that he said that the team should be perhaps 1 Scottish player signed from someone else, but the core of the team should be coming from the academy. Now, this kind of goes against what's happening at the moment. you've got Bailey Rice, you've got Archie Stevens, you've got Paul Uncio, you've got Cole McKinnon, you've got Leon King, Robbie Fraser. You've got all these players that are just sat around on the bench or not getting a chance. Zach Lovelace. Now, the question I'd ask is, Neil Copland's sitting there saying the core of your team has got to come from your academy. The core of your team is formed by your academy. But why are we not giving these academy players an opportunity? Why is Philippe Clement, despite what he's been saying about giving youth a chance, why is he not putting young players into play? You know, why is Bailey Rice behind Kieran Dowell in the pecking order? Why is Cole McKinnon behind Kieran Dowell in the pecking order? Why aren't we seeing, why aren't we seeing these youngsters coming through? Now, it's interesting that Niels Copland's come out and said that the core of the team has got to come from the academy. So, that clearly we've got two things there. We've got one, the decision over we've also got the Bailey Rices, the Cole McKinnons of this world. Are they going to get a fair crack at the whip? Are they going to get a fair crack at the whip? That's the question. And they really do need to be given an opportunity to play. So it's interesting that Niels Copland has mentioned this again, hoping that obviously that this is something that Philippe Clement is now committed to, that he will commit some of these youngsters. He will give some of these young players the opportunity to play this season. So we can actually see, is Bailey Rice as good as we've been told he is? Is Cole McKinnon as good as we've been told he is? Is Paul Uncio? Is Archie Stevens? Is Zach Lovelace? And also, by looking at these players and seeing them, we then can make decisions on them. At the end of the day, are these players actually good enough for us? Or is it a case we look at Bailey Rice and we go, actually, no, he's not for us. Let's get him out. Cole McKinnon, no, let's get him gone. Let's, get some money made on them before their contracts run down. So look, these are decisions we've got to start to take. So it was good that Copland mentioned that. It's good that he talked about a core of young players coming from the academy and forming a core of your team. We just now need to see that actually put in place. Mate Rangers, great again as well. I'm off to bed, shoulder operation in the morning. Have a good night, troops. All the best, Mate Rangers. Great again. Hope your op goes well. Rice needs loaned out to Falkirk. I'd honestly rather see them loaned down south. I'd rather see the likes of Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, etc., loaned down south to League One or Championship clubs. I think they'll get a much better test down there than they will in the SPL. Would really like us to sign the Rices, the Millers, the Watsons of the world young and loan them straight back to their clubs, assuming they are SPL clubs. Sweeten the deal for both parties. I mean, Bluebells, that's a good shout. I mean, one of the things, we could do as regards Watson is if we were to sign him in January, say to Killy, right, we'll sign him in January, you can have him back to the end of the season. But obviously he doesn't play against us. That's a good shout. Lennon Miller as well. I mean, I don't think Lennon Miller's realistic anymore. But again, that's something that we could do. Right, we'll sign him here again, Motherwell. You can have him back to the end of the season. At the end of the season, obviously, he comes to play for Rangers. Yeah, that's all realistic options. It obviously depends where the squad's at, depends where the fitness is at. Depends on a lot of factors, though, Bluebells. I think, if we were to go out and sign David Watson or Lennon Miller in January, and then suddenly we've got, Raskan out injured again, Diamande out injured again, Dowell out injured again. There's a lot of Rangers fans are going to say, well, why the bloody hell have we then signed this player and then lent them back to their own club? So we do have to be careful on that one. We really do. So, yeah, I get that, mate. I get that. And that's something that, English clubs do. English clubs will sign young players and loan them back to their original clubs. That's something I've seen, a lot of the top English clubs do on a regular basis. It's how big clubs behave. It's how Rangers need to start to behave. I agree, Bluebells. But look, I really want to see, for the rest of this season, Clement actually trying to blood in some of these young players, give them a chance to play, give Bailey Rice his chance, give Cole McKinnon his chance, give Robbie Fraser his chance. I don't understand how Robbie Fraser doesn't get a look in. The lad's class. So, yeah, I'm a little bit, I'm positive from that. Copland mentions it. Negative is that Clement doesn't seem to follow through it. It'd be interesting to see if Niels Copland then has a word with Philippe Clement and say, right, Philippe, we've got to do this. We've got to bring these young players in. You've got to start to blood them. You've got to start to use them. Does that conversation take place at some point? I would hope it would. I'd hope that the conversation would take place at some point. I really would. Okay, let's move it along a little bit. Sima, Abdallah Sima. Right, guys, you all know my thoughts on Abdallah Sima. I love Abdallah Sima. The guy is class. The guy is an absolute talent. He is an absolute talent. He is quality. I mean, he scored 3 goals in 2 games in the Champions League. He's doing well for the rather amusingly named Stade Brest in France. He looks such a quality player. He looks such a quality player. When he was at Rangers last year, he looked quality all the time. And a lot of people have said, I'd rather Sima have we'd rather have got Sima than Cortez. I talked about Cortez on the podcast earlier, so I'm not really going to talk too much about Cortez tonight. But Sima. Now, apparently, we did go back in for Sima. We put a significant bid in. I don't know what that significant bid was. But apparently there was a significant bid went in for him. But apparently the fees were higher than Cortez they were offered. But the figures that came back from Sima's people were unrealistic, apparently. So I've heard rumour of 40 grand a week, which Rangers were not prepared to pay at this moment in time. Now, you've kind of got a bit of a debate here. Yes, it's sensible not paying someone 40 grand a week when we're trying to cut the wage bill, when you're trying to bring some sort of structure to the wages, a limit to the wages. But by the same token, Rangers do pay some rather stupid wages to people. They do pay some big money to people. I mean, James Tavernier, whatever the hell he's called, the donkey, is on 30 grand a week. Dessers is on 27 grand a week. Whoever the hell signed up on Dessers getting 27 grand a week needs putting in a mental asylum. Danilo 26 grand a week. Matondo 23 grand a week. Lawrence 22 grand a week. Hadji 21 grand a week. Dowell 16 grand a week. Raskan 19 grand a week. Now I've heard that Cheney is on 27 grand a week. That's his Wolfsburg contract. Now, quite how much of that Rangers are paying, I don't know. That wasn't revealed at the time of the loan, but he is on 27 grand a week. So we are paying substantial wages to people already, but it was felt that 40 grand was too far north. Or maybe there's something in Tav's contract that he has to be the highest paid player now. I don't know. Sim would have been a great buy instead of spending the money that are constantly injured and don't get played. I agree. If you want to play for Rangers, take the pay cut. I'd play for ginger balls, mate. Wouldn't we all? We'd all play for next to nothing. But footballers, they have a shortcut. I mean, I'm not saying what footballers get paid is right. I'm not saying that paying footballers the vast sums of money they get is right by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that. And I think the amount of money that we pay to players is absolutely negligible these days. I mean, the wages that Rangers are paying are more in line with EFL Championship clubs than Premier League clubs. I mean, Premier League clubs are paying absolutely ginormous wages to players. I mean, the biggest testimony to me is if you look at James Tavernier, who is our top player on £30,000 a week. Well, the present the England right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold, is after a new contract. Now, according to the reports tonight, he's going to get a £350,000 a week contract. So that kind of knocks our contract situation a little bit into a cocked hat, doesn't it? The fact that clubs down south are paying players £200,000 a week, £300,000 a week. In the case of Erling Haaland, £450,000 a week. They're paying vast sums of money to these players. So 30 grand a week, 40 grand a week doesn't really sound a lot, in that context. But to Rangers, it is a lot. And I understand why we didn't obviously pay the 40 grand a week. I understand that we probably couldn't have afforded it. So it's sad. I mean, what's positive at least is we went back in for Sima. That's good news. I would have loved to have seen Sima back. My thoughts on Sima. I think he's a better player than Cortez. He is the finished product as well. And I think Sima is someone who probably, a couple of years down the line, you're probably going to get your money back for him, if not more. It's a catch-22, isn't it? You bring in Sima, you give him 40 grand a week. Do you cause unrest in the dressing room because he's getting substantially more than even the useless club captain? He's getting 10 grand more than Tavernier. Although, reportedly Goldson was on 37 grand a week. You're getting 30 grand more than your striker. So, 14 grand more than Danilo a week. So you could cause a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of, bad feeling there. Of course you could. But by that same token, you bring Sima in now for, say, 7 million and you pay him 40 grand a week. But in 2 years' time, you sell him for 20 million. So you're making a big profit on him. So it swings and roundabouts. It really is. And I think, the club were in a very difficult position when it came to Sima. Of course they were. I mean, like I said, we all would have loved Sima back. The guy's quality. Janet says Cheney is clearly being overplayed for the product he produces on the field. True. James in the live chat says, I never realised how annoying Ronaldo fans are. Big Suter had him in his pocket last night and they complain on Twitter because they didn't gets to take a corner. Yeah, I know. Mate, Ronaldo's the second best player in the world. I mean, everyone knows that Lionel Messi's better than Ronaldo. You've got to spend money to make money, something the Rangers board doesn't get, sadly. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, Janet. It's a catch-22, isn't it? It was the same argument that was used over Malik Tillman, wasn't it? That, you know, we weren't prepared to perhaps go to the extent that Bayern Munich wanted in terms of money for him. So, look, you know, it swings and roundabouts. It's a catch-22 situation. It really genuinely is with these players. You know, we've got here Suter. Had him on toast. He did. Suter absolutely owned Ronaldo last night. Big Sutty was brilliant last night. Sima is a goal scorer, something we miss on the wings. Yeah, we do. I think Sima is. I mean, he scored 18 goals last season, so you're taking 18 goals out of the team straight away. And the other thing I think, you know, you kind of underestimate is when you've got a player like Abdallah Sima coming from the left and who scores goals, the opposition have to account for him. The opposition have to account for him at corners. They have to account for him when he's running at them. They have to account for every situation where he's involved in because they know he's a goal threat. Now, at the moment, we don't really have that goal threat from wide position. I mean, okay, I know Tierney got 2 the other Sunday, but that was against St Johnstone. You know, it was only St Johnstone. You know, McCausden is not particularly got 1 the other day, but he's not chipping in with vast amounts of goal. Oscar Cortez, I think his legs fallen off or something like that. You know, Tom Lawrence is contributing the odd goal here and there. Byram hasn't. Our 3 behind the striker are contributing massively to the team. So, look, yeah, I agree. I agree on that one. Ronaldo looked like a big girl's blouse last night, moaning about every wee decision. He always does, Janet. He does moan like an old woman. Rangers need to go more direct. Tierney does sometimes. Yeah, I think by more direct, you mean they've got to run at players and take players on, not just pump it down the field long to Dessers, who's the worst target man in the world. No, I mean, I think you mean actually run at players, take players on, go at players, cause players problems. Yeah, I think you're right there, Curry, on that one, mate. You are 100% Mr. P. Curry there with that point. But look, it's sad that we didn't get Sima back. You know, I would love to have seen him in a Rangers shirt this season, but you know, those unrealistic figures have really hurt us, and I think he is a massive miss. He did have a huge impact last season. He really, genuinely did. So it's a miss. It's a big miss for me. You know, I think whatever happens at the weekend, we go into Sunday, it's going to be tough. You know, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday. Never a great time for a football match. Players coming back from international duty. So how much time has Clement had to work with the team? You know, that's obviously a concern. You know, if you're getting your players back Wednesday, Thursday in dribs and drabs, you know, you probably got Friday and maybe Saturday to train with the squad. So a couple of training sessions with your full squad. You know, we lost a bounce game to Dundee with Tavernier proper and Dessers playing. So Tony Docherty tells us. You know, so yeah, I mean, look, they're a big miss. The international core are a massive miss. Of course they are. You know, the Bayramis of this world, the Suters, the Barons, the Dios, you know, are all massive misses. Of course they are. But, you know, we've got to kind of, in these couple of sessions, Clement's got to put something in place. Now, Clement has made a rod for his own back, saying we're going to see the best of Rangers October, November time. It needs to start Sunday. It's got to start on Sunday. We've got to start seeing the best of the team on Sunday. Right, guys, that is it for tonight. Thank you to those who have joined us for the pod tonight. Not a huge audience tonight, a bit disappointing. But let's move forward. But thank you so much to everyone else who has contributed. Really valued your opinions, Airwolf and Janet and P. Curry and John and James and Bluebells and Rangers 1872. Make Rangers great again. All you guys, Acoustic, if you've contributed, thank you so much. Proper Collected. All you guys that have done it, thank you so much for watching. Please obviously smash the like on the way out. Share it, comment, sub, do all that great stuff for me. And remember always, never forget, we are.